if you're not determined to do this, it would break you. So it was very grueling. I did my best to keep up. I took all the punches. I try to lead by example. And I try to hope that my message of what I'm trying to do here meant more than just a job, more than just benefits.
At the birth of our nation, our forefathers took a stand with their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor to establish liberty from oppressive political and financial tyranny. Now you can take a stand as well to declare your personal liberty from inflation and the banks. I'm Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the 4th of July week specials while supplies last. First, we featured 2024 American Silver Eagles at just $5.95 over spot. Next, we have 2024 Gold 1/10-ounce Eagles at $39 over melt per coin. And finally, in a Liberty and Finance exclusive, we have pre-33 AU Gold $10 Liberties at just $59 over melt. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you. Happy 4th of July.
Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We're delighted to have this returning guest. Bill M. from Florida is back with us again. He's got big news and a big progress step of action that he's taken to start an entire new vocation, and it took training, it took testing, it took some very harrowing adventures. He actually has just gotten sworn in as a brand new sheriff's deputy as a second career, and he explained it to his classmates to protect the Constitution, to protect freedom. Bill, thanks for coming back on Liberty and Finance.
Hello, Dunnigan. Good to talk to you again.
The last time we spoke with you, you were taking us through a bit of a journey on your journey into preparedness through starting to be a stacker of physical assets, gold and silver, and using vaulting, and what kind of products what types of bullion you had selected, that sort of thing. And you've come a long way since we last spoke with you, and we'll get to that in a little bit about how things are migrating for you in terms of migrating perhaps towards constitutional currency and making sure that you have sovereign minted coins from the U.S. Mint, that sort of thing, and then how to use those in local communities for barter, and that you've checked that out in your local community, etc. But the big story that I wanted you to explain more to us about is in honor of Independence Day. We're recording this on Wednesday, July 3rd, for broadcast on Thursday, July 4th, Independence Day. And we've been talking this week on our channel, Liberty and Finance, about taking a stand, each of us taking an action stand to stand up for liberties, to stand up for freedom, and to stand up to declare our independence from tyranny. And just as our forefathers did when they founded our country, to put our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor on the line, and to stand up to protect our families, our communities, and our beloved nation. You take that very seriously, and you actually had a light bulb go on for you and started a whole new second career here in law enforcement for the purpose of protecting freedom. And it's noteworthy that in the training that you went through and the testing and the swearing in, the emphasis on the Constitution and upholding the Constitution. And we're going to get to that and how you see your role going forward as a defender of freedom and a defender of the Constitution as a sheriff deputy. And next week, we're actually going to be interviewing a very widely known sheriff from Florida who's known nationally and has appeared on a lot of national media. So that's going to be interesting as well. And we'll be dealing with multiple topics with him as well. But right now, we wanted to get to your personal story. How does someone who's already completed an initial career come to the idea of, I think I want to become a sheriff's deputy?
I'll try to keep it simple. Last time we talked, I had, I would call it escaped from New York, New Jersey. I grew up there. I worked there. I was there for over 50 years. So I made the decision to leave New York at the beginning of COVID. I was, as we discussed last time, I was working on my preparedness. I was focusing on the gold and silver, converting my fiat dollars to gold and silver for the long term and the short term preparation. But a big part of and I was training, I was stocking up on food. I was meeting my neighbors. I was doing all those things. But there was one missing piece to the plan. Is what was my role going to be? I had recently retired, so I had some free time. But I was looking for that role. What role am I going to be? A lot of the people that you speak to talk about helping in the community the best way you can. I was in the financial services business for a long time, and I'm just not sure how that would translate to helping my community at the ground roots level, especially with all the topics that we talk about. So I committed to finding it, and it took a year. I couldn't really figure it out, and the best answer I had up to that point was to farm. So I started looking a little bit into buying a plot of land, and I'm now in Florida, and grew up in New York. So I know nothing about farming, and down in Florida, the soil is kind of different. It's not your classic farmland. So the little bit I looked into, it just looked too hard. Starting from scratch all by myself, it just looked too hard. But that was the best idea I had. So during training for my preparedness, I was, again, like I said, I was working with the gold and silver people. I was talking to local people, but I also started working on self-defense. And I started doing self-defense training, and I started doing Second Amendment related training. First time, again, from New York, we don't have big Second Amendment protections up there, and to own or to even shoot a gun at a range is a big deal. So I started doing that down here, preparing. And after a couple of times, I was training with one guy, the range master at one of the local gun ranges, and we were talking. And he asked me what I did, and I told him I worked financial services, and I just off the cuff mentioned, I always wanted to work for the FBI, but it just didn't work out when I was younger, and I wanted to do some kind of law enforcement, but that ship sailed. I was at 58, 59 at the time, and I told him, the age limits of the military for police are all 35, 36, 37. So I long past missed that window. And he turned around and said, no. He said, there's no age limit in Florida. They can't discriminate. So you can be 18 to 80 as long as you can pass all the tests. It took me by surprise, because I never heard of and I never even thought of it. So from there, I said, oh, that's very interesting. So I don't know, that was like on a Monday, and I went home and I Google searched it, and he was right. And there was no limit. I gave it maybe one day's thought, and I said, wow, that might be something I could do. And watching your show Dunnigan for years, and you've had sheriffs on and had guests talk about the importance of the Constitution in your state, in your county. I did some research, and I came up with the sheriff. And that's where if I was going to consider this, it would be at the county level, at the sheriff level, where the sheriff had more leeway to enforce the law according to the Constitution in the county than maybe a mayor, a local town or a city that kind of answers to a mayor or a city council or a governor. So I submitted an application, and literally the next day, and that started the journey.
It's unusual. I mean, I remember at a military expo, looking at all the different vehicles and armament and everything they had on display. And then they had a obstacle course and physical challenge that I was able to participate in. But they said along the way, you're too old to go for the military. And to come up against that kind of, when you're fit, when you're able and you're willing, it's very discouraging to run into such a roadblock like that. But then to take the step that you did to not only anticipate and investigate, but to go through with going through the training, as I understand, like 5 months of training and testing, and some of it was very physical testing as well. And if you could explain some of that to us, when someone gets the idea that they want to become a sheriff's deputy, or they're interested in finding out more about it, and what are they looking at in terms of what they're going to have to go through in order to, as you call it, defend freedom?
So I went from the idea of doing this to one day of research. I put in an application, and sure enough, like 8:01 the next morning, the sheriff's office called about my application. And honestly, it took me by surprise, because a lot of us have submitted applications for jobs and you never hear a word. And some of us that have been unemployed, you can submit 200 applications and never hear a word. So I did it late at night, and I went to sleep. I was sitting here eating breakfast, and the sheriff calls at 8:00. And the funny part of it is, he called from the sheriff's office, and I momentarily forgot that I even submitted the application. So I asked him if there was a problem.
What seems to be the problem, officer?
And he said, "I don't know, sir. Is there a problem?" I said, "No." I said, "It's not usual that the sheriff calls me." And he says, "Well, about your application." So it was kind of a funny start. It took me by surprise. And so then we went to the discussion, and he could tell from my resume, he, in his words, an older gentleman. So he spent about 20 minutes trying to talk me out of it instead of talking me into it. But I think I held my ground enough where at the end of the 20 minutes, he said, "Look, if you can, in 2 weeks, we're going to do an obstacle course that the state requires. And if you can handle the obstacle, if you're willing to show up for the obstacle course and handle it, and we'll keep pushing you on as long as you want to go." Because I think that's the requirement. So I said, fine. So 2 weeks later, it's 7 a.m. It's still dark because it was October. I'm with 35 guys, mostly a lot of ex-military guys, mostly absolutely younger. And we did the obstacle course. And, I did state requirements of 6 minutes. And, they say they used to be 5. So I gave myself 4. I said, if I can't do this in 4 minutes, I don't deserve to do this. And he kind of made fun of me all along the way. He even talked to me while I was doing it, telling me I was out of breath and I couldn't do it. So I did it under 4 minutes. So I was true to my word, and I did it by 2 seconds. So part of me said, well, maybe this is meant to be, because if I gave myself a 4-minute limit and you do 3:58, maybe it's meant to be. So from there, he was surprised. He was kind of rolling his eyes, but again, he true to his word, he challenged me and he pushed me to the next process. Now, the next process is the background check. When you're 59 years old, you've had a lot of life to live, right? So they're going to they went back to college, high school, every job I had. They talked to, old third grade teachers kind of thing. And they showed up at my building, talking to neighbors, and that background check was very extensive. A surprise drug test, I did a 4-hour polygraph test. I did a 2-hour psychological exam, a board interview. It's all state standard background, but as a 60-year-old, you got a lot more to talk about and think about than a 22-year-old that maybe just got out of high school or college. So a very interesting experience. It was kind of grueling. I had to get a full medical exam, full blood work, EKG, all of that. Now, at 59 years old, you got to hold your breath that they don't find something for your health reasons, but also that you don't get declined. So went through all of that, kept passing, and then I got an offer to go to the academy. What's good now, the timing is you get an offer, and the agency you apply can choose to sponsor you or not, which means they'll pay the academy. Sometimes you have to pay yourself, and they also pay you to train. Sometimes you have to go on your own time. Now, 5 months, no work is a big deal. Not earning any money, and I think the academy is about $5,000. So good news is the sheriff asked me, the sheriff's department asked me, do you want us to sponsor you? Now, they say, if we sponsor you, you owe us 3 years. If you quit or leave the job within 3 years, you're going to pay us all this money back. So again, try to talk me out of being sponsored, try to talk me out of that commitment. Legitimately, he always made sure that my eyes were wide open in what I was signing up for. So, but I said to him, if I'm going to do it, let's do it. So I took the full sponsorship, took this. So I'm on the hook for 3 years. Did the academy 5 months, 30 people. I was definitely the oldest in the group. We had 19 to 60 years, so 41 years spread. That's very interesting. There was 6 women out of 30, so 20% women. a bunch of ex-military guys, hardcore guys. So, 5 months, it's like a big family. It's 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, a lot of studying. And so I made it through. And the one thing that I worked really hard at, and I hope that people in the class can agree, that I made sure that I didn't want to be treated special. So, the old guy, I didn't want, what do they call it? No old man handicap kind of thing. I didn't want to get special, cut the line or not have to do the standards won't allow you to cut corners, but, sometimes there's ways. But so I made sure I went through the academy as 100% equal and carry my own weight and don't complain. I think I did a good job of that, and I appreciate all my classmates. It was a great experience. And then that ended just 2 weeks ago.
How about your relationship with your classmates in terms of motivation of why you were there? Because I heard that was one of the things that it took a while for people to take you seriously and realize you really meant what you were saying when you said you're there to defend freedom.
Yeah, that was a little surprising to me because, this is probably the first time I was in with a group of not my peers in any way, really. I spent my career being with people who were my peers in my industry. Wherever I lived 25 years, it was my peers in the neighborhood. It was always a peer group, even with my kids with their activities. The parents are kind of all coming from the same place. This was just 40, 30 people from all different backgrounds, all different perspectives, all thrown in the room. So it was a little different for me. So when we first spoke, a lot of the teachers asked us, why are you here? And I said often, I'm here to join the cause to protect freedom and do the right thing for the community and support the community. It sounds a little bit canned, but so at first, people say, yeah, sure. What's your real reason? But I kept saying it, and I think I kept living it. They listened to my questions that I asked, and they listened to me challenge some of the teachers of some stereotype view of history. And the funny part is, some of the teachers would tell a story about something that happened in the 1990s, and most of the people in the room weren't even born then. And I was like in my 30s, and I was paying attention. And then sometimes I'd raise my hand. I said, well, I'm not sure I understand that interpretation of what happened. We all know some events in history where we can question the real, what we're told and what, and a couple of times I had a couple of teachers say, yeah, you know what, you're right. That it really didn't happen that way, but that's the official story, blah, blah, blah. So I started to get credibility with my classmates in that I was persistent in challenging things that were how do you say, against freedom. I'll say against freedom, and I was consistent in supporting the freedom's view. Even when we talk about in the class about constitutional rights and protections, I made sure I asked good questions about it. I made sure that there was clarity that that's what we were doing. We weren't going gray area. We weren't cutting corners. We were sticking to the Constitution. And so over time, my consistency, I think, convinced most of them. They even started asking me questions. But I don't think I got fully there. But we talked about it in our last discussion. You can't change people's views overnight, but I sowed enough doubt. I think I got people respecting the stand, but I know by the questions towards the end that people were at least starting to think about these things.
You probably provided a great role model, a great example, and a service, an educational service to those around you, because so much of, civic education is, I think, abysmal in general in our country. I know Victor Davis Hanson from Hillsdale University and others have talked about this problem, is heaven help our country, our beloved nation over the next couple of generations, given the lack of proper formation that students have been getting in the government schooling system about the Constitution, about the Bill of Rights, about freedom, and about even the structure and rights of different parts of the government, et cetera, let alone logic and so on. But one of the things that you provided there was, by even bringing up some of those topics, I think probably was more civic education than those some of those people had probably gotten anywhere else prior to that. And then you said that some of the training got very physical later. You mentioned the obstacle course. That sounded like that was right on the entrance gate, but some of the training at the end here has been challenging as well.
Yes. And it goes again a little bit to the credibility question. We had 2 weeks of what's called defensive training, which is good, right? We don't want police officers to be trained in offensive training, right? No, we want defense. So we were taught to be able to defend ourselves, which is a good thing. But it was 2 weeks of 10 hours a day on the mats, on wrestling mats, just beating the hell out of each other. And unfortunately I went in with a broken toe. I was training martial arts and I was a novice and I made a kick and I broke my toe. So I had to go through 2 weeks with a broken toe. And doing that, and I didn't beg out. There was a couple people that dropped out and asked for a break, and I just kept going. And I'll just cover the physical and try to wrap it up in a way. So then we also got pepper sprayed. And I never got pepper sprayed before, but it stings like hell. And for 2 hours, you just want to scratch your skin off. And I did that. So we got pepper sprayed. We had to do this mini obstacle course with pepper spray in our eyes. And for about, 5 or 10 minutes. And, I tell the people, I said it hurt so bad I wanted to quit. And but I said to myself, if you quit, it's still going to hurt. So why quit? You might as well finish, because quitting's not going to make the pain go away. That's how much it hurt. But so I did that. And last week we did a taser training. So the point of the training is the defensive tactics is they punched us in the face a little bit, so we're not taken off guard if that happens in the field. We're prepared for it. We experienced it. We know how to respond to it. So the training was not soft. It was pretty aggressive. Pepper spray. If I'm going to ever have to use pepper spray, the theory is I know how it works, how effective it is, and how damn well it hurts. So I'm going to be very careful to only use it when it's really appropriate and per policy, per training, all of that, because I know what it's like. What it's like. Same thing with the taser. We had a whole day taser training and certification. At the end of the day, we got tased. I don't know. I've never been tased before, but I can tell you for 5 seconds, your body is locked up. You're not doing anything but wanting it to stop. So between the defensive tactics, between the pepper spray, between the taser, between 12-hour days, I hope it reinforced the why. Who in their retirement, their comfortable retirement, would do that unless you really meant what you were doing. And I think I proved to myself, there was even some doubt, but I hope I gave that extra level of credibility to I call them the kids, because everyone's younger than me, the kids, that, I really meant what I said, what I'm trying to do here. And I hopefully, walk the walk by taking all the shots that needed to be taken. Physical also was part of it, but 12-hour days, 5 days a week with tests on Monday morning at 7 a.m. for, 20, 22 weeks. That was physically grueling too, you're up early, you're there late, you're coming home, 12-hour days. That's again grueling. So the physical aspect is not for somebody not. If you're not determined to do this, it would break you. So it was very grueling. I did my best to keep up. I took all the punches. I try to lead by example. And I try to hope that my message of what I'm trying to do here meant more than just a job, more than just benefits, more than a pension. It's funny, they talk about the pensions with the police forces. I'm not going to be alive long enough to earn a pension. So it's not about the pension. So it was a repeated theme that I tried to set an example.
That's remarkable and commendable. And you had to build some credibility with your team through your fortitude that you displayed. And that's there's the saying that if you have a big enough why, almost anyhow as possible. And that's what sounds like brought you through. And if we could circle back to the why, we've interviewed constitutional attorney Edwin Vera on several times on our channel, and he talks with great passion about the U.S. Constitution, mentioning the Constitution's, the well-organized militia, which in each of the states that formed the original United States of America, they had their own constitutions as colonies and as individual states. And in each of those constitutions, they had a militia to defend the constitution of their state. And you were explaining that in your swearing-in ceremony, and that you had specific references that you had to swear to about upholding the Constitution of the United States and of the state. And that's one of the things that not only Dr. Vieira, constitutional attorney, but also we interviewed Sheriff Mark Vasilishin from Ohio, who talked to us very emphatically about, I don't work for the governor, I don't work for the mayor, I don't work for the national government, I don't work for the attorney general, I work for the people of my county, and to keep the peace and to uphold the Constitution. Can you talk to us about that why, the big why of what it means to be a sheriff and what your role actually is in the heart of your community?
Yeah, so a couple thoughts on that. So I mentioned before that there was two reasons why I would quit this job or quit the process. One was if I couldn't keep up. So I don't want to be that guy on a team that, holds the team back. I don't want to be the guy at the poker table that's the dupe kind of thing, right? I don't want to be that guy. I want to be carrying my own weight and providing, my role, doing my role. So that I'm very conscious of. The second thing is if there's a hint, a whiff of this not being legit, meaning that we're in police, law enforcement, and we're not holding to that hard line of protecting people's rights and doing our job. And I can say I didn't feel a hint of that in the academy training, which is a state-sponsored program. Not a hint. So I felt very comfortable that they were teaching us the right basis for what we're doing. And it was very encouraging with our swearing in that I swore to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Florida. That was it. And to do my job with decency, respect for the people, all the basic things. But that was it. The Constitution of the country and the state. And that's what I was happy with raising my hand to. And I feel very comfortable knowing the people I'm working for, that that's what we're there to do. And I'm committed to holding that line. And it may be a benefit of being older in a second career. I'm more willing to walk if I have to walk, or I'm willing to raise my hand if I have to raise my hand. And I'm willing to say no if I have to say no, because I don't feel I have anything to lose bigger than, what I'm trying to do here and what we're all trying to do here. So I feel very encouraged by that. And I feel good about saying that, in this interview with you, that there is hope that standard still applies. At least we're talking about it, and I'm going to find out if we're really living by it, and I'm going to do my share.
It's inspiring, Bill, to hear your the power of your purpose in doing this, and the strength of commitment that you displayed to make it through all of the grueling classroom training, physical training, and testing, and the example that you set for everyone on the team. And hopefully, I believe your team will all benefit. You'll all be stronger together. Your community will be better off that you're there, and that entire team that came through this process together are there. We've talked with so many experts in the past about the importance of working on strengthening your community, because everything seems to make sense when you do it at the community level, the individual level within your own. As Dr. Jordan Peterson from the University of Toronto originally says, clean up your room. Start with yourself, and then clean up your household, your what's going on in your family. Get a deal with that. Take responsibility for that, and then move the circle outward to influencing and being a positive force in your local community. And then, rather than starting from, I'm going to save the world, do it one person at a time and make a difference where you're planted. So could you talk to us about other things that you've been doing to keep it local? And it's interesting too that you made the transition from thinking about farming to thinking about how, and not just thinking about, but becoming an officer for keeping the peace and upholding the Constitution in your community. Because a lot of people who've been with us since we started out, reluctant preppers back in 2013, have said, well, Dunnigan, after all, preparedness, yeah, we can stack up a bunch of stored food. Yeah, we can start a garden, that sort of thing. But don't you have more? And we can buy gold and silver. We're going to talk about that again. But isn't there something else we can do to help our community? You've certainly provided another avenue that people can consider to take a stand for upholding what is right and what is the proper thing to do in a free society to protect their community from all kinds of overreach and unconstitutional, unlawful wrongdoing that has been perpetrated on us, and probably more to come. So you've talked to me briefly about some other things you're doing as far as thinking about local sources of food, networking with others in your community, checking out who'd be interested or willing to do bartering or use constitutional silver in the case that was necessary, etc. Any thoughts from you on keeping it local and networking in your local community?
Yeah, there's more to it. I know we talked about my academy classes. That's where I spent the last 5 months, almost 24/7. But, when I listened to one of your interviews with Manarito, I don't know, a week or two ago, and he said, go help the local people, go do something. And a lot of your guests say do that. But, like you said, it sounds good, but do we really do it? And, I've been down here for 3 years, and so I don't know a lot of people, but I took the chance down here, Florida's down here from New York, but to be a little more open with people. And I think just open to talk to people. I think I was surprised that there's a lot of people that think a lot alike, what you talk about on this channel. So, and I think you saw a video of my family did a video of congratulating me for graduating from the academy, and they sent this video link around to all the local people, and it was very encouraging that we had dentist's office. I had the guys that sell the fish. We had my martial arts guys. We had my realtors, family members. Even my ex-wife chipped in. It was very encouraging that people respond when you open that door. And I had a little bit, in the last interview, I was more talking about New York. New York was a tougher one to crack because you open that door with most people in New York, and all of a sudden you're losing friends and neighbors and people are cursing at you, but that's okay. But down here, so in like-minded communities, I'll say, you open that door, and my fish guy, he says he'll take silver. I'm sure if I ask my dentist, he'll take silver. My realtors will work for me for barter, whatever that is. And the martial arts guys would teach me for something. And it was very inspiring. And it was also inspiring the reaction that people had to my new career. I don't call it a career, to what I'm doing. And it was very, very positive. And so I would, if you're not asking me, but I encourage the audience that you start opening those doors. You take some chances. You'll know right away when people are thinking the same things, and even if they're not, whether they're open. So the barter thing can work, at least the concept. Being the person in your community, like in the community, the fish guys agreed. If the grid goes down, he's still going to get his fish and he's going to provide. The vegetable guy's going to do that. The dentist is still going to help people with their dental. The martial arts guy's still going to open his gym, and it's very encouraging to see. And I tell them, I'm going to bring my position, my work, my duty, my equipment, all of that here as well. The grid goes down, the lights go off, whatever it is. I'm going to keep doing my job too. So it's very, very encouraging. I think I answered your question. I hope so.
I think so. And the other thing I wanted to augment that you just brought out is the theme of when you open that door, when you open that conversation with people about freedom, about doing what is right. Yes, it's taking a risk because they may just shut down. They may turn away. They might say, I don't want to talk to this guy. You might get a cold shoulder, whatever. They may call you a name. They may think of you as a so-and-so or whatever. But it's remarkable to us, even going through the last 4 years, we know what we've all been through over the last 4 years with lockdowns and mandates and all kinds of stuff like that. And it's remarkable how divisive the major mass media has been. So everybody was basically told, stay home, stay in your own, don't go to the workplace, don't go to the schools, stay home. And people were watching the television. The television was bombarding them with fear messages and messages that often made them feel pitted against each other in subgroups and afraid and doubting themselves and doubting their own, isn't this a free country? Shouldn't we be like not doing that? They were felt in many ways herded into compliance with something that was questionable in terms of its legitimacy, questionable in terms of who's actually running this. Where are these so-called guidelines that we're following, or just coming from on high or from some global organization that we don't even know who these people are, et cetera. And it was remarkable to me and my wife when we would just talk to people that you find when you would go out in various situations, how remarkably similar other people's experience was. They were questioning the same things we were questioning. They were like, oh, you feel that way too? Oh, you see it that way too? Wow, because we almost lost that reference point, that center, that trusting our gut. And people were like avoiding each other as you walked around your neighborhood, walking our dogs. People, they cross the street just to not get near you, and avoiding in the grocery store. Oh, go into a different aisle because you're dangerous to see each other. Whatever. There was that. When you did open that door, when you did open the conversation, it was remarkable how confirming, how validating, how strengthening, how reinforcing, how empowering, how energizing it was, rather than disempowering, discouraging, increasing our stress and our fear and everything else when we don't do that, when we get isolated. So I believe that there are evil forces in the world that would like us to feel isolated. You look at any horror movie or Twilight Zone episode, they always first they got to isolate the would-be hero, and then he's got to get through it anyway. So resisting that temptation or trend, or resisting the push that we're subject to, or maybe subject to again, maybe even much harder than we were this last time, to isolate and separate, but rather come together, coordinate, network, cooperate. And it's remarkable. I think that's a very powerful point. Did you have anything else to add on that before we move on to talking about constitutional assets that you've moved forward on?
Yeah, I think the last point is that when I'm lucky enough that I found something that feels right. It feels connected to people, and like you said, that energy only multiplies, and it's a strange feeling when it's all going in the right direction and people start responding. That's a whole nother level of topic that we somebody could talk about, where you create that energy and it multiplies, and it's a very powerful force. And what I would say to this is that it encourages me to even stand up stronger. Like, I don't blink anymore. I don't question. I just keep pushing forward because I know this feels right. It sounds right. It almost starts into a force, and it's very powerful. So I agree.
Well, and I think that's you're onto something very real and very sound. There is that when our feet are on solid ground of doing the right thing, and we're getting that backing. In this case, I'll share the testimony that the congratulations e-card that was put together for you with video contributions from all these different community members, and I chimed in as well, was valid. It was heartening to me to see that, and to just know it, for you to know that going into your community in your new role as a sheriff, that sheriff's deputy, that they know that you've got their back, and you know that they've got your back, that they are backing you, that they are supporting you, that they are encouraging you, that they're saying, go get the bad guys, help keep our community safe. We're here for you. Keep yourself safe. Make sure you make it home at night. I heard that message from several of them. That's empowering. that is strengthening to know that your community's got your back and they know that you've got theirs. So we can give that to each other in communities. And that's partly what we're here for too on Liberty and Finance, is to be that voice, reaching out to, we have 100,000 plus subscribers now, and that's just on YouTube. We also are on Brighteon, Rumble, SoundCloud, etc. Anyway, the people who are joining together to partake in this messaging, and they often suggest guests we should have on. That's where a lot of our good ideas come from. It's from the community. So they're helping us, we're helping them, we're helping each other. And that's a tremendously powerful thing. I totally agree. The last time we had you on, you talked about your journey with starting to accumulate gold and silver so you could protect yourself financially from changes that might come or were already happening, such as destruction of the purchasing power of the dollar, et cetera, and risks of the banking system, lots of different things. But you've come farther since the last time we spoke with you, and we need to keep this really short. But if you could give us kind of the cliff notes of what are the big additional steps you see yourself taking beyond just being a starter who's starting to accumulate some gold and silver bars and coins and rounds and just to have some things in storage so that you're not entirely dependent on the current financial system that you know is unsound and is going down the drain. And beyond that, what are the additional steps you've taken just in the last maybe year or so since we spoke last?
Yeah, so real quick, I've tried to mirror what we all are talking about, what the BRICS are doing and what the central banks are doing. So I want a core position in gold. And I'm using even a 40% number, which I understand there's the rumor that the BRICS are going to go to a 40% backing, or that's the number that gets tossed out. So 40% core position. I understand the concept that silver is the one that's going to go, to the moon and all that. Doesn't matter. I want to keep my 40% core. If the banks are doing it, if the BRICS are doing it, I'm gonna play that game and match them, and stick to U.S. Eagles as best I can. I sprinkle in a little collector's items with the king and the queen and all that stuff, but mostly the Eagles. And then the silver, and you know this, as I've done it with you, is I've converted a lot of my bars to Eagles, especially when the premiums were lower recently, so that sovereign coins, U.S. and the Eagles, and I'm much more, based on our conversation before, I'm much more willing to look at my Eagle collection as a source of barter. So I'm all bought into that. And the other topic that I'm looking at, and you and I have been speaking lately about, is very interested in the states' rights issue or the states' laws. And so, Bill Holter mentioned something interesting about North Dakota on his recent interview. Utah has, legal tender laws that look like they're good, and Texas has a depository, and Florida's talking about some things. So I'm really focusing on that, domestic, of where I'm going to store my metal, where I can hopefully head off any federal government confiscation plan where I'm in a state where I'm protected most.
I want to encourage anyone who hasn't tried yet, go to soundmoneydefense.org. It's the Sound Money Defense League, and their website is soundmoneydefense.org. They've got a map of the U.S. They've got a breakdown state by state of all the things that Bill was just talking about the states that are leading the way in terms of not just states' rights, but basically the people's rights and the restoring the constitutional role of gold and silver as proper currency, as our money. And there's a bill that was just introduced recently by Representative Mooney from West Virginia, and I'll get the reference to it up here. Hold on. And that is the U.S. representative introduces bill to end federal taxation on gold and silver. It's called the Monetary Metals Tax Neutrality Act. It's H.R. 8279. If you look up House Resolution 8279, it was just introduced in May of 2024, backed by the Sound Money Defense League, and it says to clarify that the sale or exchange of precious metal bullion and coins are not to be included in capital gains, losses, or any other type of federal income calculation. Gold and silver would be treated as a non-entity for tax purposes, putting on par with the U.S. dollar. And Representative Mooney says, my view, which is backed up by the language in the U.S. Constitution, is that gold and silver coins are money and are legal tender. So I really encourage people to check that out. It's very encouraging. This isn't a bill yet. It's just been introduced. It is a bill. It's only been introduced, hasn't been voted on yet. It's in committee. And there's a lot going on at the state level. We've spoken with Patrick Holland from the Missouri Freedom Initiative, and we're going to be having some additional people on from the Utah Precious Metals Association soon. And it's very encouraging to see what can happen at the state level and also at the national level under the right representation. So, Bill, you all said there's also a role in your plans for constitutional silver, like dimes and quarters, that sort of thing, for silver for bartering.
Yeah, I've not emphasized that yet. I'm more the gold eagle, silver, the eagles, but that is something that I want to look into further. But as you know, the premiums recently were up at 14, 15 over spot. Now they're much lower. So that's something that I
yeah, 250 over spot now for constitutional dimes and quarters. So and you were mentioning if people are considering swapping bars into eagles, the premiums on eagles are down now too. $5.95 is the current sale, and that's way down from the $14 to $17 that the eagles had, a year and a half ago. So it's something to still seriously consider for people who want to have sovereign minted, U.S. minted gold and silver legal tender coins. We'll have to circle back again because, you're just speaking of freshly minted, you're a freshly minted sheriff's deputy. And we're going to want to, if we could, get an update from you after you've had some time under your belt in action and in the community. And because it's also very meaningful, I think, to everyone here that you explained the importance to you of making sure that you weren't going to be party to any kind of non-constitutional pressures or actions or bending of the rules or gray areas and all that, and you were encouraged to find that it's straight up, at least through the training process and the testing process and the swearing in process. It will be good to hear how that plays out, in the hard knocks of real life. You've certainly been through some hard knocks already in your training. Our hats are off to you, and our hands are firmly on your shoulder and on your back, supporting you, and encouraging you to persist at that. And if anyone else is listening to this who has had that twinkle in their eye or in their thought in the back of their mind, Bill is a living example of someone who's put his life and fortune and sacred honor on the line here to uphold his community and uphold the Constitution, and to resist tyranny, to resist those that would disrupt the peace of our society. So, Bill, our hats are off to you, and thank you on this 4th of July, Independence Day, for being an example to the rest of us on how to take action and how to basically sacrifice for the good of our community and those around us, and to set a good example.
Hey, thank you, Donegan. And similar to what I said after the last interview we had, it was a lot of fun. I hope it gets a positive response, and I hope that we all do our share, me, you and I, and just to keep this momentum going.
Well, let's hear it for that. So thank you, Bill. Thank you for joining us, and thank everyone for listening to this testimony, to this interview. Please share this widely. There's got to be family, friends, neighbors, coworkers, acquaintances that would benefit from hearing this word of encouragement and this, frankly, inspiring example of one man taking a stand to protect freedom. Bill from Florida, thanks for joining us on Liberty and Finance.
Thanks again, Donegan.
At the birth of our nation, our forefathers took a stand with their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor to establish liberty from oppressive political and financial tyranny. Now you can take a stand as well to declare your personal liberty from inflation and the banks. I'm Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the 4th of July week specials while supplies last. First, we featured 2024 American Silver Eagles at just $5.95 over spot. Next, we have 2024 Gold 1 10th-ounce Eagles at $39 over melt per coin. And finally, in a Liberty and Finance exclusive, we have pre-33 AU Gold $10 Liberties at just $59 over melt. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you. Happy 4th of July.